Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, yes. Your screen is on.
Okay. Okay. Okay, thank you. All right, so I'm sure that most of us are already familiar with the Piper Alpha disaster 32 years ago. So this discussion is going to focus on just gaining an overview of the incident with a view of having us refresh a little bit about the learnings from the incident, just as a way of highlight, then move on to discussing the legacies Piper Alpha left behind for us. And we're also having extended discussions on the effects of the event and in the Nigerian context, how well enough we are learning, applying the learnings from that incident. So the evening of that very day, July 6, 1980, platform was ripped off by an explosion, series of explosions actually. 165 men on the platform dead, and about 180 barrels of crude oil was spilled into the sea as an environmental impact. And the incident recorded about $3.4 billion of damage in terms of cost of property. Fortunately, 61 survivors, made it through that incident, and 30 bodies were not found up to it. So next we'll go through what happened, but before we do, I'll take us through the background on Piper Alpha. Piper was exploited in 1973, and the platform, Piper Alpha, was constructed just about 2 years after the exploitation. Occidental took up operation of Piper Alpha in 1976, producing oil and exporting to one of the islands in Orkneys called Floater. Now, because of the high productivity of this operation, the platform, just barely 2 years after production requested from the UK government an exception to encroach on the platform. And this request was granted on one condition, that rather than continue to flare, which was the practice, that they would have to export gas. So in response to this condition, Occidental had to get Piper Alpha retrofitted to accommodate gas treatment facility as well as a condensate handling facility. And they principally exported propane and methane gases while injecting the condensate into the produced oil line for export. So this slide I have here gives us a relative positioning of Piper Alpha to the platform. And as we can see, Piper Alpha sent oil to Floater through a 30-inch export pipeline. This line is also fed with oil by oil produced from the Titan platform through Claymore. Piper Alpha also sends gas through the MCP 01 through to St. Fergus. So here we'll just take a quick sort of emotional video into a snippet of what happened that very day.
Monica, you also need to share computer audio.
So can we hear the sound now?
Yes.
July 6, 1988. 120 miles northeast of Scotland. The Piper Alpha oil rig. At 14,000 tons and 2.5 times the height of the Statue of Liberty, it is one of the largest rigs in the world.
Piper Alpha was the world's most successful oil rig. What that means was that in a single day, Piper Alpha produced more barrels of oil than any other oil rig or oil platform in the world.
A crew of 226 rotate shifts to keep the oil and gas flowing. Jeff Bollins is the chief control room operator that evening. At 9:45 p.m., Jeff suddenly hears an alarm, indicating a problem with one of the rig's condensate pumps.
And condensate injection pumps tripped more than any other equipment we had. No panic, we knew we needed to get it back on because it was going to start affecting production.
That evening, Pump A is offline for maintenance, leaving just Pump B working. The same pump that's now been shut down by the alarm's trip system.
The condensate pumps were an integral part of the production facility. You couldn't have them both offline for any great length of time without shutting down everything.
To avoid a full shutdown, a decision is made to halt maintenance on Pump A and bring it back online. But what nobody knows is that Pump A has a fatal flaw. During maintenance, its safety valve has been removed, meaning that there is nothing to stop thousands of cubic feet of gas escaping into the atmosphere. The faulty pump is switched back on. Then, at 9:55 p.m., disaster. A spark suddenly ignites the escaping gas, and an explosion rips through the rig. Confronted by 700-degree flames, most of the 226-strong crew are now either dead or severely injured.
The nearest analogy is that it was a
Okay. So as a way of refresher, and for the benefit of people on the call who are really not so familiar with the Piper Alpha story, the release of hydrocarbon from the flange, which was used to stop the point from which the pressure relief gas was taken off. So what was said to have happened that very day from the investigation was that after the spade had been put, in between the line flange, the maintenance folk had actually tightened the bolts with their hands. Secondly, the line also was not, and for understandable reasons, the line was actually isolated, the line was offline. Then one other key thing to note, as what happened that very day was, as was expected, the permit to work on the standby pump was raised, separate and different from the pressure relief valve of the pump. Now, the issue was that the filing system at the time was such that permit to work files were put in locations where the equipment were actually stored next to the equipment which were being fixed, or for which they were raised. So essentially they had like a location-based filing system, right, that warranted permit to work to be kept in different locations versus having them put together for sets of equipment. So as we can see from the schematic to my left, the pumps are actually on a deck lower than on a deck beneath the relief valves. So it actually meant that the permit to work system for the pump was in a separate location, consistent with the location of the pump, while the permit to work for the relief valve was in a different location. So that evening, when there was a need to continue production after the duty pump had failed, the operators had gone to look for the permit to work for the standby pump, identified that work hadn't actually started. Unfortunately, there was no toolbox meeting, to have given way for complete handover of activities of the day, right? So unknown to them that the pressure relief valve was taken off, they realigned the pump and continued production of condensate through export of condensate through that line. So, and as you would agree with me, release of hydrocarbon in a live plant is a complete recipe for explosion as we saw it, right? So the first explosion actually happened as a result of an ignition in module C, which is a gas compressor module. Yet another explosion followed shortly after in module B. And what was thought to have happened in this case was now because after the system upgrade from oil production to accommodate gas, the risk assessment, or there was no risk assessment, right, to actually revisit the effect of gas production on the facility, right? So the compressor module was designed to withstand only fire, but not blast, such that when the first explosion happened, the walls of compressor module B, which is the compressor module, was shattered apart with panels flying around, and it was thought that these flying panels would have ruptured a tin module B. And module B is actually the separation platform, which houses tank farm of up to 55 tons of crude oil. Now, after the second explosion, several other explosions followed, principally from the failure of a gas pipeline, which was pressurized up to 120 atmospheric pressure. A couple of other findings that escalated the incident was the fact that the fire was still being fed from adjoining platforms, the Titan and Claymore. And this was principally because the management of those platforms were insistent on waiting to get a feedback on the severity of the incident on Piper Alpha, which of course was not even going to come through because, of what they were experiencing on the other end. So after we had come to shore, they eventually started shutting down over an hour later. So we learned Titan Oil started shutting down about 10:45 p.m., which was way over an hour after the incident. And then Claymore followed, at 11 p.m. One other escalating factor was the fact that in the course of the about 2 hours of flame, no single water was released into the fire to fight the fire or to cool the structures. That was a significant gap. So I'd like to know if anyone has a question.
Monica, you finish before we do question and discussions.
Questions? Okay. All right.
Finish
So,
all through.
okay, that's fine. We'll move right into the incident investigation, just a snapshot. After the incident, a panel of investigation was set up led by William Cooling, and it was deduced that there was no exact cause of the incident. Understandably so, because most of the evidences were lost and a lot of people who would have given live testimonies were also gone. However, piecing some information they got together, they were able to arrive at three major root causes. First being management failure, second being a gap in the MOC process, and finally, procedural failure. As we all know, Piper Alpha, in terms of number of lives lost, had been the most fatal and traumatic event in the oil and gas industry, right? And the event left us with a lot of lessons. So right now, we'll just take a snapshot into, the key lessons that were learned from the incident. One of them being that versus the location-based work permit filing system at this time, Piper Alpha, most facilities right now operate a centralized work permit system, right, that allows permits to work for systems and their associated components to be filed in the same place, regardless of relative location in the design of the platform. Also, to ensure a seamless transfer of activities between shifts, most operations have also begun to adopt toolbox meetings to ensure that no detail is left untouched between shifts. One other lesson is the need to prioritize safety over production, which was one of the gaps we saw, and to also eliminate the human influence in deciding when to back off production, when lives are being threatened, are made to factor in back pressure systems, during the design of platforms. One of the recommendations, as well as the lessons learned, from the Piper Alpha, was to include a risk assessment as part of the management of change process, which, if was done, would have given way for the upgrading of the critical units in the system from fire to blast feed protection systems. Now, the question being asked at the time was applied in the course of the whole incident. Essentially, what happened was usually divers, when they commenced diving operation, actually had to switch the firefighting pumps from automatic to manual, right? And that also, during an audit previously, was identified to be not a safe practice. However, the recommendation to discontinue from that wasn't followed. Platform structures also gave way, sooner than later in the course of the incident, right? Not able to carry critical components of the platform, especially the sections that housed the crew on board, the emergency room, right? So after this incident, there became a recommendation, in one of the RPs, select platform structures be or blast proof, depending on the outcome of for such platforms, and priorities are oftentimes given to manned platforms. Now to the legacies which Piper Alpha actually left us. The first and most important one, which was taken from Piper Alpha incident, was the introduction of the safety case regime, which essentially is a written demonstration of evidence and due diligence provided by operators in order to demonstrate that they have the ability to operate a facility safely and can control inherent hazards. To drive this safety case regime at the UK at the time, regulations were made to ensure that operators actually, to ensure that the safety case regime is enforced. And such regulations transferred the responsibility for identification of major accident risk from the legislator and safety inspectorate to the operating company. And it also stipulated that operators must also prove that they have consulted with the workforce. Yeah, in this case, the people who are exposed to the risk, right? So they would have consulted with them to prepare a safety, such safety cases, and have made copies of the accepted document available to them. And then this safety case also was supposed to be reviewed and updated periodically by the operators. It's interesting to know that this particular legacy is adopted globally, and Nigeria is left behind, as the safety case regime system is driven by DPR to ensure that one is developed for all installations operating to be operated or decommissioned within the oil and gas industry in Nigeria. One other legacy which Piper Alpha left us with was the transfer of safety oversight responsibility from the Department of Energy, as it were then, and even in most places, to health and safety. Now, before the Piper Alpha incident, what the practice was is that inspectors from the Department of Energy visited platform to carry assessments. So after Piper Alpha, this was transferred to institutionalize an independent process safety body to complement the efforts of DPR. So having gone through all that, one thing that actually stands out is that there was a significant breakdown in terms of management, because as we could see, there were no clear procedure for shift handovers. The permit to work system was not robust. Personnel on board were also not trained on really importance and relevance of previous incidents. And also the evacuation procedures were also not adequately practiced. And one other thing that also stood out was the fact that there was no adequate assessment hazards and control on the platform. So the question is, while Piper Alpha had actually offered us something to learn from, how well have we as individuals applied ourselves to those learnings? And also as corporate bodies, it's good to know that we have folk from the assessment body joining us, and like personal safety, health, safety, and environment is everyone's responsibility. I am committed to safe operation and safety wherever I go and find myself. And the question I'm going to ask to everyone on this, thank you.
Thank you very much, Monica, for the beautiful and highly educative presentation. Before I hand over back to you, our elder for today, Engineer Bayo, I would like us to take note that this presentation wouldn't have come at a better time than the situation we find ourselves with respect to process safety in Nigeria today. We are aware of the recent tanker explosions within the same week, one in Lagos, another one in Lokoja, claiming over 50 lives. And these are coming on the heels of another explosion that happened a few months ago on an offshore oil platform off the coast of Ondo State. And you see these incidents that happened 32 years ago has similarity with what is happening today. So what we should focus on discussing today is to look at those, particularly those recommendations that were made after these incidents, because you learn from incidents and take actions to prevent further occurrences. So whether our situation is still the same as the situation where UK was before this disaster, or we've moved away and some of those recommendations have been implemented. We need to discuss this today and see if anything that we can take away from this to improve our own system. Thank you very much once again, Monica, for this wonderful presentation. Mr. President Representative Engineer Bayo Olarewaja Alo, please, you take the first shot.
Okay, thank you very much, Engineer Mahmoud, for putting this together, and Engineer Monica, congratulations on your very clear and interesting presentation on the Piper Alpha disaster, which happened some 32 years ago. And personally, listening to you, I know that there's a lot of parallels for us here in Nigeria. When the Piper Alpha thing happened, I was very active in the industry at the time and working for a multinational company, Shell, and many other IOC took seriously the recommendations coming out of the Lord Cullen's report and implemented and ensured that they are being implemented in facilities. I can say that Shell in Nigeria did that, and I'm sure that most of these other IOC probably did the same. The problem is, what have we done in our own local operators? I'm talking about the marginal field operators. I'm talking of NNPC refineries and the NNPC pipeline system. Every now and then, we have this mini Piper Alpha happening on the NNPC pipeline. Some due to failure of the aging facility, but a lot due to sabotage from people who want to steal the products. But what I find very, very distressing personally is the fact that after each incident, I don't see a published report that has looked at the incident, carry out proper investigation, know what the failures are, what are the management failures, what are the technical failures, what are the operators' failures, and then put measures in place to address them so that we don't keep killing people around. For me, that is an aspect that I think we should focus on. How do we ensure that those who are responsible in Nigeria perform their roles and come out with recommendations that will help us to prevent such occurrences again? If we don't do that, we will continue to kill innocent people and continue to destroy our environment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. I think we also need to yield the floor to Professor Adefila before we throw it open.
Thank you very much, Engineer Mahmood. If I can go back a little bit, we really have to appreciate you for this wonderful job which you took on, and it has yielded a lot of good results. I'm sure for me, I eat better now at home. I'm sure many of us do also from the previous lecture. This lecture has come at a wonderful time. I wish that this lecture followed the lecture which Mahmoud gave on life cycle of operations of EIA or ESIA, because a lot of debate took place on the Fellows platform, HSE platform, very recently on the Lagos INFERNO, and we seem not to be able to reach a conclusion. I was listening very, very carefully here to our young lady. I can see that this particular inquiry was headed by a judge. I'm sure, I don't know whether it's a Supreme Court or whatever. Because we're talking there, we're discussing there whether it should have been headed, or the whole idea should have been initiated by government or by the people. All these kinds of things, I think we should take note of them here. Then, at a particular point, though I couldn't catch it very well, the areas which a DPR has also taken note of, I want her to wind back a little bit so that you could see, because it seems as if DPR was suggesting that a small section of in the DPR be, sometime back. We can do that later. Where you are making, you drew attention to DPR that time. Anyway, when the question times, comes, we'll take it on. And I want Mahmoud's committee to recommend to council to see what we can do in escalating some of these lectures to our journal or to any other place where it can become more visible. Thank you very much, Engineer Mahmoud and his team. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. The floor is open now. So anybody that has contribution to make, utilize the raise hand icon on in the app. So I'm seeing one hand up already. Bright, who was it? Bright, who was it?
Thank you very much.
No, sir.
Engineer Monica, I really want to thank you for this interesting and enlightening presentation. Actually, the question what was bothering me was harped upon by the last speaker. When you were presenting, I didn't quite get what you were saying about DPRO, because I know that from the presentation, one of the LFI's lesson from the incident bordered on the fact that we needed to transfer the process safety from legislators or regulators to the operator. And one of your slides was saying that DPRO is doing something like that, or is an ongoing event. You know, that's an open statement to me. Where exactly are we? Because in Nigeria, I know that we specialize more on occupational safety rather than process safety. This really is interesting to me because I want to know what's the position of DPRO on either enacting or ensuring that process safety becomes as prominent as the occupational health and safety, the way we have it in Nigeria. And secondly, since this is a professional body, I also would like to know if we have a professional stand on propagating process safety, because looking at the lives of 250 persons, according to the short video, that's no small thing. Piper Alpha investigation could reveal that number, but I'm sure in Nigeria, if we look at the small pockets of explosions that has been going on, by the time we aggregate the numbers of fatalities, I'm sure probably will be more than that. And that's why as a body, we need to take this up and seriously at that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Engineer Bright. The two key issues that you raised, with respect to presently, we now put more emphasis on occupational safety and neglecting process safety is very true. And also you ask what NSChE is doing in terms of how to entrench process safety. Dr. Irene is not here, and I think I need to speak a little bit on that. The Nigerian Society of Chemical Engineers is presently promoting the process safety initiative that is called Process Safety Initiative of Nigeria. Those that are familiar with AICHE's CCP, yes, that's the Center for Chemical Process Safety, or the European Process Safety Center. This initiative in Nigeria is modeled around that. The organization has been registered with the Corporate Affairs Commission now. It is going to be an independent body. Membership is based on corporate bodies. Any corporate body can be a member, and is privately driven, is an organization that is recognized by Corporate Affairs Commission as it is now. So the main focus is to develop capacity in process safety, and also provide support in terms of investigation, in terms of standards, codes, and also improving process safety practices. So in that case, we are actually on the way. So the BOT just met two days ago. We also have an implementation committee, and we are moving. So I don't know, is there anybody from DPR here to maybe talk about, or somebody knowledgeable about the DPR process to speak about that particular issue with respect to whether DPR actually have a process safety unit. Engineer Dadet, I know you work closely with DPR with respect to your position in your organization.
Well, I think I wouldn't want to comment on the on this, because it would have been more appropriate for someone in DPR to comment on this. But the only thing I can say is that yes, we have some aspects of our process safety features that DPR is involved. For instance, there are situations where, for instance, if we want to do HAZOPs, we get DPR also get involved in some of our major HAZOPs. Yeah, of course, HAZOP is a major process safety aspect in plant changes. And then also we also have DPR reps, even on our side as well. They do some sort of monitoring. So I think this is much I can say concerning DPR involvement to the best of my knowledge. But I think it would have been actually more appropriate, to have a DPR rep, comment, on this.
Yeah, if I may also add here, the issue of process safety in the Nigerian context is overall relatively new, but it is not relatively new to the oil and gas upstream, in the sense that the IOC, they are transferring their international operations and standards to all their operations also in Nigeria. So, for example, I know that in Shell we do have a process safety expert, and when we were trying to launch the initiative that Engineer Mahmoud spoke about 2 or 3 years ago, where we had the first process safety workshop in Lagos, we invited key players, key stakeholders in the oil and gas business who are already familiar and actually practicing process safety in their operations, and they attended. Representations also was made from DPR, and I believe also LNG and so forth. So I think DPR, I don't believe DPR in itself as a body is properly staffed to have the expertise, and DPR themselves, they need help to have experts who can deal authoritatively on process safety. And this is an area that I think maybe the society can also help them. It is very important that we have a regulator who has the technical skills and know-how on management of safety to be able to regulate the industry. What is happening in Nigeria today, once you go outside of the upstream sector of the oil and gas, the situation is so bad that we have only just been lucky that we don't have many incidents. But with people trying to cut corners here and there, the number of accidents will continue to skyrocket. My only hope is that the regulating body, which is essentially DPR for now, should not wait until we have multiple Papa Alpha disasters on our hands before we start doing the needful. This is the time now for us to start proactively to engage those who are in authority to pay more attention on this aspect of safety performance in industries, in factories, with road tankers and all haulages in barges and so forth, to ensure that those people who are involved in these operations, First of all, they are skilled and they are trained to know what the hazards they are dealing with, and then they know how to manage and handle them, and how to proactively ensure that we don't end up having series of accidents that we killing people and destroying our environment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. We have Engineer Ibrahim Salau. I can see your hand up. Then after you will be Engineer Tukur Lawal Stone.
Okay, thank you, everyone. And thank you, Monica, for that beautiful presentation. I just want to add my voice to the call for a further reach of this type of presentation. This is a very, very good initiative, and I am proud to be associated with the team that is putting this together. There is a lot of knowledge that can be very beneficial to us from this presentation that Monica made, and from what I have had from the several other presentations that you have had. So I want to just suggest that for future presentations, let us extend invitations to relevant stakeholders. For example, it would have been beautiful for the oil and gas sector. They have an association. I'm trying to, OPTS, for example, OPTS, DPR, or even Manufacturers Association of Nigeria. So they can take the necessary lessons. And that way, Nigerian Center of Chemical Engineers will be making a valuable contribution to our environment. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that as far as process safety and DPR is concerned, I know that they actually try to do a lot. For example, the safety case measure that is taken today is a condition for renewal of terminals, oil and gas facilities all over the country. But how effective that process is another thing, but that's something that they do, in addition to what my other colleague mentioned in terms of risk assessment, like hazards, and the like. So they try to do a lot as far as that is concerned, but clearly in terms of effectiveness, they apparently would need to do more. So once again, thank you everyone for putting this together. It's been very valuable. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Engineer Ibrahim Salah. Engineer Tukur Muhammad Lawal. Can you make a comment?
Yeah, Mr. Bello, I was disconnected for a while. I actually wanted to make a comment following.
Yeah, you have the floor to respond to any issue that you feel like responding to.
Okay, all right. So
let's take the comments, please. Just take note of the issues that you want to respond to.
Okay.
Engineer Tukur? Okay, Professor Fusho Akeredolu, I'm seeing your hand up. Can you come in?
Yeah, good evening. Good evening, Mahmoud and Monica and the rest of our elders. In as much as the risk for explosion is seen and occurs in petrochemical industries, but other industries like ours, cement, also are at risk because we deal with a lot of fuel and fine material. So therefore, I think we need to shine light into these issues on our own industry and see how we can avert disaster to happen. I know in my previous experience, we've had 2 explosions in some of the companies I have worked with. So what I would like to, while congratulating Monica, and thank you for, facilitating the discussion, I would like to see the thing I'm not seeing that a lot happening, so that we can share knowledge and synergize on how these strategies can be abated. Prof has already drew our attention to the issue of transparent oversight of health and safety. I think we need to discuss this thoroughly and see what are the take points, what are the salient points we can be able to, implement in our companies and ensure that, yes, we do not have such, we can avoid such strategies. Thank you very much for giving this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Engineer Tukur. Professor Akeredolu.
I wish to thank everybody for taking part in this program this evening. What I want to contribute has to do with the way we handle health and safety overall. We've seen that it is not high priority in some areas, but where it is still handled as if it is something to shroud in huge documents and for circulation among top executives only. We have to make it such that the production does not take precedence over safety. That is one of the lessons of Piper Alpha. But right now it is not. That it is production we are giving priority to. We should cascade it into a place whereby safety is core business, even though we know they are there for money. But keeping people safe while making the money is so important as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Any other contribution from the floor? Any other contribution from the floor? Okay, Monica will give you time now to respond.
I believe most of the concerns have been addressed. I just want to throw in a little bit of light, right, into what DPR seems to be doing, in terms of safety. And I agree with one of the speakers. They are actually trying their best, but effectiveness needs to be reviewed, right? And I believe that's going to be met by the independent body, which is currently being developed, put together to complement their effort. In terms of the safety case regime, right, that's been ongoing, right? And it's important to note, that, the safety case is actually similar to risk assessment, right? So in different ways, as someone had mentioned, DPR is involved in most of the HAZOPs, the EIA assessments and all that are being done before operations commences in most sites, right? So, but how that differs from risk assessment is that the operator or the intending operator has to justify, the safe choices that they are putting across, right? How they have to justify it, and that's what differentiates a safety case from a regular risk assessment, which I know very categorically, having been involved in some refinery projects, some months ago, that this is actually a part of their requirement, making justification for and the safe options which they actually make a choice of, you know, in running a hazardous plant, you know, a refinery qualified. So on top of the right things to be done, but then the question that needs to be asked is how effective, you know, are those processes?
Monica, you are done?
Yes, I'm done.
Okay. Before we wrap up, I'll go back to Engineer Bayo Olariwaju Alu again for final remarks before we wrap up.
Okay, thank you, Engineer Mahmoud. And let me once again thank Monica for the wonderful and excellent presentation. It is very thought-provoking, and I believe that we will all go away from here thinking of what we need to do to improve process safety in Nigeria. But I get very, very worried in the sense that while we have DPR focusing essentially on the oil and gas industry and petrochemicals, we used to have a department of the government that is called Factory Inspectorate, who are supposed to be looking after factories to ensure that factories are operating safely. I've not been hearing about them, and I don't know if there's anybody policing factory, because everybody can just set up a factory anywhere. I don't know who really goes to audit this factory to make sure that they are safe, they are safely constructed, and they will operate safely. That is an issue that bothers me. And then also, for the ongoing or disaster that we have every now and then that is becoming very frequent, I don't see any effort by any government agency that is seriously setting up investigative panels to look at the root causes of all these incidents. And I think as a body, we should make our position that to the authorities that of the need to establish such bodies that can draw on all the available expertise in different fields to help us investigate incidents. The main objective is not to look at culprit, but to identify the root causes and help us put measures in place to prevent them becoming daily occurrence. So having said that, I would like to thank everybody. And if you have any suggestion that will benefit the society in making a good case towards the relevant authorities, I think we should all send our suggestion and proposal through I believe we have a safety group as part of our many.
Yes, sir, we have.
So that we can then put together a position that we can further escalate to the necessary authorities, because we just can't continue operating the way we are right now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Yeah.
Engineer Mahmoud, before you wrap up, please.
Yes, sir.
Engineer Mahmoud, I thought after Professor Akeredolu's comments, I thought you were going to comment because, he was saying that perhaps safety is, left to top management and is just mere, it's a mere discussion on mere discussion platform and co. I just want to draw attention to the fact that actually many companies, because Mahmoud and I, belong to a particular one, we take these things very seriously, and it is escalated up and devolved down. Everybody gets involved. I mean, there's no doubt about that. And perhaps because of the kind of job which we do, particularly, I made reference to EIA, ESIA, whichever name you want to call it, because these are part of the things that we are supposed to look at, while doing EIA. And, there is also requirement for environmental audit, which is supposed to be done, on regular basis. And it's supposed to cover all these kinds of things too. So, well, let me just leave it there.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir. Maybe I will start the wrap up with that. I actually didn't mention it because I was planning to address it during the wrap up. That comment by Professor Akeredolu is closely linked with what Engineer Bayo Olariwaju Alo said. That there is no effort by any government agency to take responsibility of these accidents that happen in our community almost on weekly or sometimes on daily basis, like we witnessed last week. So if responsibility is not pinned in a particular agency, it is difficult to actually control. So what we are going to take away from this meeting today is that there is actually no specific government agency that takes responsibility of these tanker explosions that happen. Investigations are not being carried out, and when those investigations are carried out, as we've seen in some isolated cases, the reports of such investigations are not made public. So this is an issue we need to take forward and see what we can do about it as a professional body. The second issue that is thrown up today is the issue that DPR have oversight for process safety in the oil and gas. But what of the other industries? Chukwu mentioned his own industry, the cement. There are also other manufacturing industry. Who is responsible for process safety? Which agency is responsible for process safety in those organizations? Fortunately for us, these are the gaps that the society have already identified and seek to address through the establishment of the process safety initiative in Nigeria. We also learned that we need to escalate issues that are thrown up from these discussions to council for actioning and pushing forward, and also publish more in the various societies publication. That will be done. There's also generally more preference is always given to occupational safety than process safety. And this meeting today has clearly identified the reason, because process safety is safe is new, not only in Nigeria, in the world, and will play the catch up. Awareness is increasing and the industries are becoming more aware and establishing. There are quite a few industries in Nigeria that have process safety units. Nigerian Liquefied Natural Gas, for instance, that's a department where the assistant coordinator of this group, Engineer Dated, works. So, and there are also many others. Almost all the oil and gas industries, the upstream, they have process safety unit. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming. I thank our guest of today, Monica, for taking time to put the paper together, and also the stress that we put you through to do mock presentation almost twice before we arrive at where we've arrived for presentation today. We thank you for your efforts and your enlightenment. The people in the back room, Wilson Dadet, Chinasa, are doing a lot of work in the background to ensure that this flows smoothly. We thank our elders, Engineer Olarewaja Allo, Professor Adefila, who hardly misses Dr. Wada, was here earlier, shortly before 5, and announced that he will not be able to participate because he had other engagements. We also thank him because he hardly missed as well. I now call on Bashir Inua, if you are still online, to do the closing prayer. Bashiru. I can't see him around. Engineer Tukur. Help us do the closing prayer.
Oh Allah, thank you for giving us this opportunity to share knowledge and the apprentice of our knowledge. Oh Allah, may you make it easy for us to implement some of the silent issues and solutions we have had today. May we have COVID-free 2020 and beyond. Amen. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. The presentation and the recorded version will be shared through email for all participants, and it will also be shared on the various platforms, HSE group, the Fellows platform, and other platforms that are accessible. Thank you so much. Thank you for your participation, and thank you for your support all these months. We do it again next month, and the last Saturday of October. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks everyone.
Thank you, Monica. Thank you, Monica.
Thank you.